Hi everyone. Hello. Welcome to the digital free market roadshow that we have to do unfortunately in a online format this time. We're going to have 3 days of online events, basically through Facebook Live. We're going to have a number of guests throughout these 3 days, discussing basically the philosophical, economical, and political aspects regarding the coronavirus epidemic, right? And we're starting off today with the philosophical side of things, and I'd like to introduce Agnieszka Blonka from Poland. She is a researcher in the field of information war, state propaganda, with experience in data science, and also with research in the field of the psychology of totalitarian regimes. And she's going to be speaking to us today. First of all, before we get into that, however, I would like to thank our partners. That means basically the Free Market Roadshow, the global organization, also to the Romanian and the American University in Bucharest, who have helped us to organize this event, and to, of course, all of our partners, local, national, and international, have made this event possible. So I'm going to welcome Agnieszka into the call. Hi. Hello, Agnieszka.
Hello, thank you for the
Right.
kind introduction.
Thank you as well for taking the time to speak to us. We'll just let you go into the point, and we're gonna loop in at the end and perhaps take a few questions if we have the chance. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you again, Sorin, and it is a great honor to start this series of meetings. So when coming up with a banner sentence that you may see soon, I was thinking
Mhm.
about what is core to all of the discussions that we will be having in these 3 days. And the core of it is a, well, certain living entity. And it's not the virus, of course, 'cause virus isn't technically alive. There's not much to debate when it comes to the nature of it, but it is a human being. So all that we will talk about here in the next 3 days, philosophy, economics, political strategies, those are all research and strategy areas that grew around the basic question of who a person is, how a person should be treated, and who is to have a legitimate power over a person. So we are basically talking about human nature. So as we know, there are many philosophical takes on these questions, and they then result in different political strategies. So, and whether these strategies enhance human happiness or not, that depends on whether the philosophy captured the human nature as it is. So, my argument, and it's a general take of personalist, but also of Ayn Rand, is that a person is an end in themselves. So, each of us has unique intrinsic value as a human being, unique aspirations and hopes, and we are the sole actors that can be in charge of them. And of course, there have been many philosophies that claim something very different. And in consequence, they treat people like data points, like elements of some kind of non existent greater good. And they are not seeing human beings for who they are. They are not respecting them and violating their boundaries. And that, in the end, will result in emotional trauma for these people. They will be stripped of agency, of responsibility, and of self worth, just because they are treated like something that they are not. So, such philosophies are based on false anthropology. So, that of course is true for all of the collectivist philosophies, but even utilitarians, which claim that ultimately they see the individual, they still choose an approach that, in a way, effectively lies about human nature. So, and I also think that here is where philosophy, political philosophy, links with psychology and the view of Ayn Rand, also the view of personalists, the view that a human being is an end in themselves, that is linked with the best possible outcome psychology wise. So, generally, how we treat another human being exists on a spectrum. So, there is this extremely narcissistic end where we treat people like objects that are just supposed to serve a certain role, or are supposed to be a pawn for a common good that doesn't even exist. And if these people do not serve their purpose, we throw them away, we abuse them, we pretend they don't exist, or if that's in politics, we throw them in jail or kill them. So that's the extreme narcissistic end. And this extreme empathetic end, this personalist but also objectivist in how Ayn Rand would view it, uh, is where we treat another human being as an end in themselves. So we have appropriate boundaries. We see them as unique and valuable actors that are responsible for their own life. So we do not want to use them abusively, but make business with them respectfully. So this empathetic approach to a human being really honors human nature as it is. And uh, the take is, I do not feel entitled to anything from you. You do not feel entitled to anything from me. But let's see if we can make things better for each other if it's fine with you. And if anyone engages in any entitlement, that's crossing a boundary. So you're not treated properly anymore. You're becoming an object. And if it's on a political scale, your natural rights are violated. And of course, there are all shades of between treating another human as an object and treating another human as a human. But how does the state treat us? Well, of course, it's kind of far away from this empathetic spectrum, and the more totalitarian the state, the closer it is to this objectifying narcissistic end. But it's not only true on a political scale, but for smaller communities, workplaces, families. Well, some people do have these personality disorders that make them possible to interact with others only to exert control. And the relationships such people form will be toxic and result in trauma in their victims because those victims were reduced to an object. So these phenomena are known in clinical psychology, and I claim that they are actually transferable to political psychology. So if we act as if a human being is not an end in himself, we will traumatize him. And there are known comparisons between Eastern and Western Germany that show the mental and physical trauma of the Easterners. So that's the general framework I will be making my argument in. And those are, of course, some extreme examples, but how does this relate to the current crisis? To the lockdown, to the stay at home orders, to what governments are doing today in the pandemic? So, well, mostly there is this curve, right? And we are all told to flatten the curve. And if you look at the y-axis of the curve, these are numbers of people that are infected. So does it already mean that plotting this kind of curve is objectifying, disrespectful because, hey, I'm a human being and I cannot be put on the y-axis? Of course not, because biology or statistics or medical science doesn't answer questions about human nature. It answers limited scientific questions. So uh, they're just dealing with narrow phenomena. So this flattening the curve is the answer to a question. Given certain rate of possible transmission of the virus and uniform patterns of human interaction, how prolonged social distancing is needed to make the healthcare system sustainable in such crisis? This is the only question that this curve is the answer to, assuming certain patterns of human interaction. It's a narrow scientific question. It doesn't answer anything about who a human being is and how a human being should be treated and what should be done. And well, that's a side comment. The key here is the healthcare system capacity, right? We are already dealing with overregulated healthcare systems around the world, and we do not have the data on what their capacity and the resources would be without the state control, licensing, and well, what have you. So I suppose we all agree that there's a tremendous and heartbreaking waste in this department. And so the lockdowns and distancing were mandated also to kind of duct tape an already broken system. But anyway, all those biological questions do not answer who should mandate the distancing, how it should be done. They do not answer any questions on what you should do with your own life because they can't. So the only thing we have here is certain externality, the virus, and we have to acknowledge that it may be harmful to other people if we choose some activities that otherwise would have been harmless. So that poses that philosophical problem of, well, whether in such circumstances someone else has the right to forcefully ban us from engaging in these activities. So it's not that easy of a question because, well, we know not everyone will voluntarily comply. Not everyone may have the understanding and manners to wash their hands appropriately. But does it mean that they get to be told, go to your room, like they are children? So I am all an advocate of individual responsibility and manners. And I actually think a lot of libertarian arguments, they boil down to we should be civilized enough for liberty because not everything can be solved perfectly by law. And people actually they prove to be very resourceful when they are given credit. So if someone should step up a bit, then treating them as responsible adults makes them behave as a responsible adult. And I know that may sound utopian, but we need to start somewhere. And I can already see that someone would say that a crisis of this kind is not the best time to test it. Well, maybe not, but what they are doing instead is worse anyway and has worse consequences on human life and on mental health. And again, mental health is crucial for maintaining liberty and also thrives in liberty. So I will always robustly say that nobody has any rights to effectively objectify another human being. So maybe it's really hard to pinpoint what's legitimate and what is not at the liberty end of the spectrum in face of such externality. But right now, it doesn't even matter what is perfect because we are so far away from perfect. So we are treated like cattle and we should be hating it. So this is not who we are, and it's making us sick, and not in our lungs, but in our heads, which are far more important. However, and well, that is kind of a tragic reflection about today's state of humanity. It is too easy to manipulate people with fear. And I will repeat after many others that fear is the beginning of the end of liberty. But if we go back to that curve, at no point the result of epidemiology research, and well, let's assume it's all true and correct. So at no point does that research state what the government should do to us. It is not normative, but it is being used to impose quite drastic measures. And under what assumption or under what excuse? So they think they know better what we need in life, assuming that health and answers to all these medical questions it is all that there is to human life. But again, medical research is limited science, and there we really are data points. But medical science does not deal with human nature. And we are objectified if the government uses this research as an excuse to lock us down, because that's already the kind of action where we have no say in. And the problem is that when we are being locked down, we are not being locked down as data points, but as humans that have weddings, fellowships, baby showers planned, as humans that like to watch rainbows and pet stray cats, while humans that are battling various mental health problems and need to meet friends in cafes or need various kinds of therapy, and people that are running small businesses that are very important to the community and being very tight on budget. And all this is scattered knowledge. And all this hidden opportunity cost and all this scattered knowledge will never make their way to any kind of simulation. So we will never know just how harmful the lockdowns were. And well, it is immoral and contrary to human nature because a human being has a natural right to choose their own risk and their own way of life. Granted, as long as it doesn't harm others. But well, we are the species that made all these discoveries and technology possible, so we should be able to grasp the idea of distancing and hygiene. And businesses will naturally want people to feel safe inside. So the more decentralized such decisions are, and of course the perfect decentralization would be up to the level of the individual, but still the more decentralized they are, the more of this soft scattered knowledge we can take into account, and the less economic and mental damage will occur. So this one business owner knows how much savings he has, how these handful of families are dependent on him in one small town, and nobody else does. Like this elderly lady knows that a solitary walk outside where she gets to smell the flowers keeps her going, and nobody else does know that. And there are grandparents that would probably prefer to attend their grandchildren's wedding and have one last highlight night, even at the expense of a shorter life. But the problem is nobody gave them that choice to make, and someone in the government knew better. And that's disrespectful and that's abusive. So, not to mention the horrifying suicide problem. So, well, in the mainstream, talking about that false dichotomy between life and economy has been very loud. And of course, there is no choice or battle between life and economy, because life is economy in the way that it is interacting with others, meeting others, providing them service, creating, producing, and what have you. So if someone thought it's appropriate to force others to forsake all that in order to ensure that they breathe without them having any say in that, well, he kind of confused us with vegetables. So even now, well, the issue of the economy gets back to the picture when reopenings are being discussed, but they still see us as objects, and they do not see how organic and intrinsic to human life economy like that is. So they try to make some kind of utilitarian calculations when they discuss reopening, minimum damages, deliberating what to open when and why, but these calculations are kind of entirely missing the point. So we are looking at various graphs that answer limited scientific questions. It's all knowledge in the making. The conclusions don't even have to be correct because the pandemic is not over and we are just learning now. But then if someone in the policy making world would again use those graphs to try to limit the damage, well, that's the same as maximizing happiness in a way. So what happens if he tries to do math on something you cannot do math on? Because you cannot do math on human happiness. What does it mean to be happy for me? It's different for you or anyone else. And maximize or minimize is a mathematical word. So you would need to take my happiness, your happiness, happiness of that girl who bullied you in high school, happiness of that plumber, happiness of that professor and baker, and then what? Add them together, integrate them, define them as function of some kind of factor, and then maximize given that factor. Well, it's even crazier than adding apples and oranges because that's not who we are. That sounds ridiculous. So it's not only bad social science that tries to make impossible calculations and doesn't recognize the true nature of a human being, but it's also stepping over the line to even be asking these questions, because it should never be up to them to tell us what to do with our lives. We are the only ones that really know, and we are the ones that have the right to decide. And well, by the way, if, for example, someone thinks I'm not going to take into account safety measures, that's kind of an insult to my maturity. And I wonder if you guys are feeling the same. So, what is important here and what is entirely missing is that the job of the political system is not to keep us safe and happy, is not to save our jobs and lives. It is to preserve the rights that we naturally have. And we live in nature that is humbling. We cannot really fine tune everything. And there is no way we can make utilitarian calculations because our happiness by nature is not something anyone can do math on. So all of this went wrong this year, or maybe this year actually showed how wrong things really were underneath anyway. Anyway, we need to strive to be well mannered, educated, and to handle things in a mature way for our own sake. Because if we are not that, then liberty can be easily taken away from us, and they will find arguments to do it. So that crisis may be a great excuse for them, and that's scary. So this is my take on the subject. I think a lot of people later in the event will have uh, various comments and takes on that.
All right. Thank you so much, Agnieszka, for that presentation. We actually do have two questions that we can put forward to you if you'd like to help us with an answer. So, which country do you think from the entire world deals or have dealt with the virus and the situation it created the best way on a social level? This is from Kristi Diakono, one of our followers.
Oh, yeah, thank you for the question. I I don't think it's a bit early to answer this question. However, I am right now joining you from Malmö, Sweden, And well, I took a ferry last month for family reasons, but also I very much prefer to say to myself to stay inside instead of having the police tell me that, which started happening in Poland. So when it comes to me, I'm really happy to be here in Sweden. So on a social level, we will see what happens after the crisis, and we will have the data and the understanding that we don't have now. However, I would say that the fact that there are no lockdowns in Sweden is probably the best for people's mental health, and they can then make their own decisions as much as possible in terms of how they're going to handle it, what they will be doing. But of course, there are trade-offs, and the problem is that this virus is very new, and I think that it was never about being it was always about the fear of uncontrolled death. It was always about control, in the sense that people are a bit freaking out that they cannot control death because they want to control death. um, and another point is that well, after 9/11 the airports changed forever, and that's a bit scary. So it's scary what may change forever after this year. And if we go back to what happened at this really unexpected sudden crisis before in history, usually we learn that the measures that were taken were the worst possible. But I'm really happy to be in Malmö, and we will see what we get to know in the next months.
All right, fantastic. And I think we have time for another question. This is from Laurentiu. Besides incompetence and lack of responsibility of the political actors, do you think there might be other agendas at play, like centralizing more and more powers in the hands of the government in the interest of the quote-unquote common good?
Well, I think that's certainly possible. However, it could be that this crisis is being used in that way that it's kind of a nice side effect for them. Of
Mhm.
course, we were preparing for a financial crisis for a while now, and well, it's true that Austrian economics does not have any means to say when it will happen, but we will know. We know that with the existing policies of the central banking system, at some point it has to happen, and we will end up in hyperinflation. And people were thinking that, well, it's about time. And now this coronavirus crisis is so conveniently in 2020 that the crisis that would have been probably in 2020 anyway can be very easily blamed on the virus. So nobody is questioning the financial system. That's great. That's a great side effect. Also, people were saying that, okay, maybe they want to change our habits. If we stay inside for a long time, we will be not used to bigger gatherings, and we will be not used to protesting, and that's great for the government if they want to seize more power. It probably wasn't the agenda, but now that it happened, it's a great side effect for centralized power. So even though it wasn't like planned in the books, I suppose that the current situation has many opportunities for the centralized power to grow, and for our people's mindsets to kind of, well, we in a crisis, actually humanity tends to trust the government more out of fear, and they are
Mhm.
going to use every inch of that. So
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
thank you.
I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for taking the time to joining us today. We'll be in touch, and for everybody else watching, we'll be back at 20 minutes. Actually, no, 40 minutes past 3 with the next show, Callum Nicholson, with a very interesting topic. We'll be back then. Thank you. Thank you again, Agnieszka.